Well, I'm teaching a short story called Gooseberries by Chekhov. Famous story. I don't know if you read it before. It's about a very horrible man who marries a very ugly old lady and he just waits for her to die. And as soon as she dies, he takes the inheritance money and he has absolutely no remorse that he's actually responsible for her death. He just kind of starves her and pretty much takes her the life out of her just by being mean to her and everything. So he takes the inheritance money and he buys his dream cottage, his dream farm with all these gooseberries, hence the short story title Gooseberries. And he lives a life of pretty much like a demigod in this small farm town where he's surrounded by the locals, the sycophants, and he gets them drunk. He buys them bucketfuls of vodka, and they listen to every little word he says, and he grows fat. And his dog grows fat, and his personal chef grows fat. And the obesity becomes a metaphor for the starvation of his spirit and his soul as he substitutes that emptiness with food upon more food. It's a fascinating story about how we're maladapted to environments where life just becomes easy. It's scary because we all want the easy life, but what we don't know usually is that we're maladapted to it. We just become fat slobs. You know, the story is really a picture of a man living in a graveyard. He lives in stagnation. And so as I'm talking about this story to my students, I'm thinking about a disease that's very common in the world, and I would call it the big fish in a little pond syndrome. I thought about this in the late 1980s. I moved from the Bay Area to Bakersfield, a small town. You know, Stephen King has a joke about Bakersfield. There's a sign at the city limits that says, "Welcome to Bakersfield, you'll never escape," or something like that. It's supposed to be like this black hole that just sucks you in and you never get out. And I think there might be some psychological truth to that. I mean, I talk to people in Bakersfield. By the way, people in Bakersfield are very nice to me. And I still have some friends in Bakersfield. Some of them came from other parts of the country and moved to Bakersfield. Some were born and raised there. But in Bakersfield, people warn me, you can become a big fish in a little pond, especially if you come from some big city. You know, when you move from a big city to a small city, you suffer from big fish in a little pond. Your jokes seem funnier with everyone. Your literary references make you sound so urbane and so cosmopolitan. You look more handsome. Your muscles look more rippling. Everyone wants to marry you. You feel very intoxicated by this sense of elevated grandeur as you become a quasi celebrity in a very small town. Every day is a potential Chanel number 5 moment. And I'm sure I played that for a while I lived in Bakersfield. You know, I eventually moved to the Los Angeles area after 7 years of teaching in Bakersfield. And I got sick of it, of living that kind of big fish in a little pond life. It made me embarrassed. I became disgusted by myself. I mean, I could see myself as being pathetic. Thank God I had eventually some level of self-awareness and metacognition that broke into that. But when I think about that time in Bakersfield and think about the syndrome, the disease of being a big fish in a little pond, I always think about a guy that I saw there all the time. He looked like Paul McCartney. He was sort of a wannabe Paul McCartney lookalike. I mean, he did have a striking resemblance to him. He was a little shorter than Paul McCartney, a little squatter. He had some pockmarks. But you know what? Living in a small town, it was good enough. Because wherever I would see him, the gym, the dance club, at his cell phone sales job at the shopping mall kiosk, he was always a magnet for beautiful women. They come right up to him and go, "Oh my God, you look like Paul McCartney." And he just played that for every drop he could get. And I didn't like him. He annoyed me. I'm sure on a certain level there was a certain envy that I had because he was such an easy magnet for beautiful women, and I resented that, I'm sure. But I think my contempt for him went deeper than that. I would look into his eyes, and there was a vacancy there. There was a no there there. There was an emptiness. And what I realized is that because he was a big fish in a little pond, because he could play the card of looking like Paul McCartney, it was too easy for him, and he didn't have to do anything. And he had reached a point in his life a long time before where he was just on autopilot, just doing nothing. And the easy life pretty much results in you doing nothing. And when you do nothing, you become apathetic. You become a zombie, and your head becomes empty, and you just grow fat. And so what happened to this Paul McCartney guy? Well, middle age set in, and middle age didn't treat him very well. His face became distended and bloated, and his Paul McCartney features obscured to the point of no recognition. And you know, that was his one gimmick. That was his one shtick. That was his one ace card in his deck, man. He played it all out. And when he no longer looked like Paul McCartney and got kind of fat, he, his sales plummeted in his cell phone job. The women lost interest in him, and now he's an unemployed diabetic who lives in his mother's basement, and he's probably watching this video right now. He's probably in a robe, eating a Hot Pocket. It always goes back to Hot Pockets, doesn't it? He's probably watching this video, and his mom is yelling at him, Paul! His name's probably not Paul, but maybe she calls him Paul at his request. Paul, you need to take out the garbage. Paul, you need to go to 7-Eleven and get me some more vodka in the latest issue of TV Guide. You know, it's really dangerous. You know, what he did was he banked his happiness on two stupid things: being a big fish in a little pond and looking like an aging celebrity. Bad move, Paul. Now, you need to get on your bike and go down to 7-Eleven. Man, you're mean today, man. That was mean. Forgive me. Until next time, I am out.